Welcome to the studio. It's Froyle here. I'm so glad you've joined me, and today we're doing something a little bit experimental. A whole lot of jelly printing, and I'm going to give you my 3 best top tips for successful image transfers using magazine images. And let me just tell you, this is not my favorite technique, but I've been getting lots of questions about using the magazine image transfers. So we're going to jump in today, see what we can create, and see what fabulous prints can come out of this very experimental process. Now, the thing is with image transfers using magazine pages is they're very hit and miss. And I don't like the mess, that's the problem. Using the colour laser copy prints works every time, perfect, without fail, but magazines are a little more tricky. There's a lot more variables, there's a lot more elements to consider. So tip number 1 is your magazine. Now, it's really important to use good quality magazines because the photos and the images and the pages are really glossy. You need high toner in the colour of the prints of the magazine because that's what resists the paint and causes it to stick to the gel plate. Now, I've got a fabulous magazine here from the Singapore airport. I know, we're going to try all sorts of different ones today, and yes, they are the expensive ones. This one's the Italian Vogue. I mean, that's got to work. It's Italian Vogue. It just has to work. And then, then we've got one here from Australia, mate. That could be possibilities as well. So the magazine's really important. You have to have beautiful glossy images for the image transfer, but also you want to be looking for high contrast, so you need a lot of dark and light areas. Now we're going to go through these magazines first and rip out a whole pile of images that I think could possibly work for the transfer process. Like these ones here, beautiful portraits. You want to make sure you've got areas of strong dark and light because that's what's going to create the beautiful transfer, because the paint's going to be absorbed into the light areas and resist the ink of the page in the dark areas, and that's what creates the fabulous image. So they could possibly work. This one here's got great possibilities. These images could possibly work as well, and you don't have to just use portraits. You can use the text in the magazine. That always looks really good, but like I said, it's a very hit and miss technique. So don't come crying to me if it doesn't work for you the first time, because you can't give up. You have to try the technique, experiment with your magazines, and if it's not working, try a different one. That's a really nice image, but the thing is, if you've got an image like this, that red value is going to be too close to the dark value and the beautiful skin tone. There's not enough contrast in this image for it to actually be a good transfer. Even though the image is amazing, I don't think it would transfer well. We could try them, but you've got to promise you're not going to laugh at me if it doesn't work. This one could be really interesting. Let's start with this one. I think that could be quite fun to start with. We've got the tattoo on her hand, and we've got the headscarf and the half a face. That could be quite interesting. And you want to pull out a whole heap of different images, way more than you think you're going to need, because a lot of them actually don't work on the plate. But if you've got a huge pile next to you, then you can easily just put down another one straight over the top. I know, right? And some of the images are just going to work well for using texture. We're going to create a few layers of different patterns and textures and create beautiful prints from the fabulous pages in these magazines. Right, I'm going to put a whole heap together in a pile, and we're going to see what actually works. Right, so I've pulled out a whole heap of pages, but we won't know if they really work until we actually try them. So I've got some fabulous portraiture images here, strong contrast. This kind of image should work really well because there's a good contrast there. The image is clear and sharp, but until we actually try these particular magazine pages on the gel plate, it may or may not work. Really hoping it does. That's a pretty cool image. Yes, I'm loving it. I also have some pages that would be just great for texture, to add texture to the plate, and hoping something is going to pick up. Also, I've got some pages to create some text. Text looks really good, especially if we're creating layers on the print. That looks fabulous. But again, until we put them on, they may or may not work, and we're just going to have to see which ones actually print. So I'm going to start with some heavy bodied muted turquoise, because why not, right? So the number 2 tip is your paint. You don't want too much paint on the plate. That tends to be my downfall most of the time. I'm very heavy-handed and lavish with my application, and when it comes to magazine image transfers, I actually have found that less is more. I know. Who thought I would say that? So, small amount of paint on the plate is the best way to start. I'm using full body. If that doesn't give us the desired results, then I'll try the fluid paint. I'm going with this one first. I can't remember which magazine she came out of, but it was one of the 3 that I had been pulling the images from, and we'll see how we go. Might take a little bit to get warmed up. Righto. Paint on the plate, image down. Oh, she's looking pretty good. She's not too bad for our first print now, is she? Okay, put that over there. Now I'm going to let her dry, and then I'm going to pull the print with another color, something nice and bright. But while she's on the plate like that, you can always change things. You can take the paint from the side if you don't like that build up, which I don't. It's coming off. You can also just remove any of the dings and bangs and blemishes that were left there from the paint, especially while it's still wet. Maybe I don't like that spot there under her eye, and maybe that one there's just a little bit too much. That's just from the paint that was rolled on, or from the different tone and color from the page that was printed. So you can always just wipe off the little bits and pieces that you're not happy with, and then we can choose to either put another layer on, create some texture, or pull it as it is. I'm thinking we need some texture. I might pull out some of my favorite texture making tools, like my favorite draw liner. Now it really doesn't take very long for that to dry because it was a lovely thin layer of paint. I know. I have to keep reminding you because these are very important aspects of the process. Now I'm putting some pastel lemon on top of the beautiful muted turquoise, and we're going to just create a little bit of texture in this layer, and then we'll pull it with a final color. Going to put a little bit of texture on with my favorite kitchen draw liner because I just really like the pattern. Ta-da! It's a lot of fun and it's really easy, and we love easy. You can put it on twice even and you get twice as much pattern. I also think I might put some stamps on there. Now, in putting the stamp on the wet paint like this, I'm actually just removing some of the paint because I'm going to create another color when I pull the print. So removing the paint like this allows for that final layer of paint to be seen through the print layers. Righto, think that's enough. Take the stamp off me, let that dry and pull the print. Right, so let's see how we did with our print. I put copper on for the final color to pull the print, and I'm pretty excited to see how she comes up off the plate. Oh, she's stuck. Oh, maybe I didn't wait long enough. Yeah, that's so like me. She did stick in a couple of places, but not to worry. That was a great start for our image transfer experiments. I could do a little touch up on that, or she could become part of a beautiful collage piece using that face. I know, she's just gorgeous. So let's have a little experiment with some more, and maybe, oh man, I'll just wait a bit longer for them to dry. That's a bonus tip. If you're going to do multiple layers on your jelly plate with image transfers from the magazine, wait for the layers to dry. Right, well that was a whole lot of fun. I absolutely love it. I love the experimental process. I love trying different ideas. I love working in layers on the gel plate. Let's have a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, this was my first print, and we all know how that turned out. Yes, she transferred beautiful from the magazine page. Gorgeous looking face, great textures. I loved putting those layers of textures on the plate, but then someone got a little impatient and pulled it before the final layer was completely dry. So note to self, don't get impatient. She pulled a little on the plate, but I'm pretty happy with it overall. For a magazine image transfer, we're doing okay. Now, this one was really interesting. Again, a beautiful portrait from the magazine page. She transferred really, really well. I love it. She's in the muted turquoise, but I couldn't do it the same now, could I? No. This time I pulled out my numbers foam stamp, which you'll find at PM Artist Studio. I've got a few designs there with the foam stamps. I absolutely love them because they're so easy to use. They're so quick, straight on the plate with the fabulous numbers stencil, and then I've pulled it with the iridescent bronze fine. I think she looks really interesting, far more mysterious. Having that side of her face covered in numbers just makes it a little bit more fun. Now this one here definitely looks like a perfume ad, which it should do because it's straight out of a magazine page. The transfer works beautiful in the brown black. I'm using my foam stamps. The texture looks great, and I pulled it in a pastel coral color, which gives it this fabulous great tone. She's looking beautiful, rather mysterious, and quite a good print, especially for a magazine transfer, just saying. But my absolutely favorite print would be this one. I think she looks glorious. Can't remember which magazine it was, but it was only one of the three. I put her on the plate with muted pink. It's a Liquitex color. It's an absolute glorious range of colors. She turned out really beautiful as a transfer, and then I used one of my really expensive mark making tools. That would be this fabulous material which came from the dollar store. It's a reusable shopping bag. I chopped the handles off, got a nice big piece out of it, and voila, doesn't it look fabulous on the plate? I wanted to put it around her and over her and create these textures, and you can see the glorious textures on the print from the material. It looks fabulous. Dollar store finds, I'm telling you, they are the best. I think it worked really well. Beautiful layer of rich gold, and then I pulled the print with Titan Buff, I think. Anyway, this is my pick for the day. I think she's glorious. She's got a beautiful look about her face, and I'm loving both the colors and the texture of this print. Yay for us, that one's a winner. Now let's talk about the not so successful ones. This one really was quite a disappointment. This was the face with the hand and the tattoo. I really thought it was going to produce a great image transfer, but no, it didn't. Well, first of all, I had paint already left on the plate. I thought that would add to the grunginess of it and create more atmosphere with the print, but it didn't work out so good. And I do think I had too much paint. You have to remember, thin layer of paint on the plate for the magazine transfer to work. If it's got too much paint, it just goes smudgy and you can't see the actual clarity of the details, which is what happened to this one. It's rather garbage. But you do get that in the process of experimenting. Just know it does happen. What else? Oh, this one here. Oh man, What do you think about this one? She started off with a beautiful face full of elaborate makeup. I really thought she would transfer well, but she didn't. Either it was the page that it was printed on, or it was again too much paint, and that usually is the problem. Too much paint is going to be your number one problem. So if you ask me, message me, text me, email me, I'm going to say to you, it's probably too much paint. Because that seems to be my number one problem. Besides the magazine, it has to be glossy, beautiful, glossy, yes, expensive magazines that have got high toner in the ink of the pages. So she didn't really print well at all. And then I thought I might just pick up a jelly print that was sitting on my floor and put her straight onto it. You actually can't see that there's any kind of portrait there, but the jelly print's really nice. It's got a really nice texture to it. It created another layer of paint color to my print, so I'm pretty happy for that. So remember that if your image transfers don't work exceptionally well, layer them on top of other jelly prints and it just creates more texture. As a textured background print, it looks pretty nice. Now this one is really interesting. She turned out to be quite a successful transfer. She looked good in the plate, but I didn't want to do same, and I had another print laying on the floor. Yes, don't tell me your studio's any different. So I picked up this paper and I put her straight on. No extra paint, no layers, no nothing, no waiting. Put her straight onto this background paper and she looks really interesting. Now she's not clear because the print was already so textured and patterned, but I think it makes for a very intriguing and interesting print design. So you can have a little play with that. Use the jelly prints you've already got, try some textured backgrounds and just see how they look. Don't get stressed out if it goes belly up. You'll have to try, you'll have to experiment because that's how you stretch your artistic muscle. Now text works really well. This is a text image transfer. I put it on the plate and then I used one of my background masks just to create a different line and a different texture. Yes, my favorite draw liner came out because I love the print that it takes. And then I pulled it with some rich colors. I'm loving it. It would actually make a really cool pattern in a collage of some sort because you can't quite read it, but you can see that they're actual letters. I like textured papers like that. I think they work really well. And the other text pages in the magazines are sometimes a little hit and miss, but when you get them to work, they're really, really cool, especially the big text. That works well because it's got more color on the letters, like hello. This one was really cool. This was the last print that I took. She transferred well onto the plate, but it was a perfume commercial and I didn't really want it to look like a perfume commercial. So I wiped out all this section of the print here and decided to add my own textures. Put my beautiful stamp on in my fabulous poem script. It looked glorious, but then I wanted to play with some textures. So I put some more of the paint on, sprayed it with water, which is one of my most recent and absolute favorite techniques. And then added some more colors. I pulled her with Titan Buff and she came off really well. The print looks fabulous. I could use that. It could be quite cool. I love this texture of it. That works really well. Now that brings me to my other point. Copyright is a big deal issue, especially with image transfers from magazine pages. These are all copyrighted images. You have to remember that. So if you're ripping pictures out of the magazine and printing them and transferring them and creating jelly prints, you actually don't have a right to those images. So you don't want to be selling those artworks or exhibiting those artworks or claiming those artworks for yourself because someone might hunt you down and harass you for copyright infringement. Now, if you look at the beautiful image transfers, mixed media collages on my website, I'm using either my own photos or I'm using a royalty-free website where you can use the images, download them without any copyright infringement. There are quite a few royalty-free websites that you can access images from without having to pay for them. So if you like the transfer technique process, Make sure you're going to use color laser copy prints. They work even better than the magazine pages, and if you're using royalty-free images, you're not going to have a problem with copyright. Now, like this page, if you have a look at this, there's no way in the world you can tell what I've got on that page. It's all textured elements, so that one wouldn't be a problem. But if you're going to use something like this portrait, then that's copyright infringement if you're claiming it for yourself or you're wanting to sell it. So just a little side note, you want to think about that. You could use these for your own personal use, great for practicing techniques, great for learning a new skill, and you could put them in an art journal, or you could just create them for yourself. Just a note of warning to think about the copyright issues if you're wanting to sell something. Well, I'm pretty happy with today's printing. I think they turned out better than I expected because I have found that image transfers with the magazine pages are rather a hit and miss process. I hope you had a lot of fun. I did. Which of these prints or processes do you like the best? I'm still leaning towards the portraitures. I think they're beautiful. Thanks for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed this very experimental but a whole lot of fun process. Just remember, the technique is hit and miss for everybody, so don't give up. Try again, create some different layers. Remember the points. Number 1, your magazine and the image that you're choosing. Number 2, the amount of paint you're putting on your plate. And number 3, create layers. Get those textures happening. And if it doesn't work out the first time, don't stress out about it. Create another layer on top, add a stencil, add a stamp. You can create all sorts of incredible textured background papers using these images. So I really hope you've been inspired. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did creating it. Even though some of them were a little oopsies. It's all good for your creativity, and it just helps you to develop all of those fabulous art skills. Now, don't forget, you'll find more information in the description under the video, and if you're looking for my stamps and stencils, digital collage papers, you'll find everything you need to know on froyalart.com. Go and have a look there. It's a whole wonderland of creative inspiration. So I'll see you next time in the studio.